For those who aren't familiar with Rob Mee, Rob is our CEO. Rob serves on our board of directors and frequently advises the world's largest and most trusted brands, government agencies, and also fast-rising startups about the value of agile software development using open cloud platforms. A software engineer by trade, Rob actually started his career working at an artificial intelligence laboratory in Tokyo, writing natural language translation systems in Lisp. I'm sure that one will come into the story somewhere. In 1989, Rob actually founded Pivotal Labs, which is where our name has come from. The company, based in San Francisco, focused on rapid internet-style software development known as agile programming. I'm sure no one's heard of that. Over the years, Pivotal Labs has been credited with shaping some of the software development cultures in some of the most successful and influential brands and now valuable companies in the world. Interestingly, in 2012, Pivotal Labs was acquired by EMC Corporation, and in 2013, Rob was actually part of the founding team for Pivotal, alongside Paul Moritz, Scott Yarra, and Bill Cook, that formed Pivotal, bringing together assets from Pivotal Labs and also from EMC and VMware. Rob graduated from the University of California in Berkeley. Please join me in welcoming Rob Mee.
Thanks, Gavin. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Really nice to be in Australia. As Gavin said, it's my first time, which is really a bit of a shame. It's quite nice here. And looking at my hotel room right into Sydney Harbour and see the Opera House and all of that, I was really struck. There were these beautiful ferries coming in that looked like they were gliding straight out of the future into the berth. I thought, well, you don't have any boats like that in San Francisco. Our boats don't look like that. And it sort of just made me think about, Australia leaning into the future and what's going on with software development, and contrasting that a little bit with Silicon Valley, because I think sometimes people get the impression that Silicon Valley almost has a lock on software innovation. There's all those companies there that are so influential, so much VC investment, and so on. But really, I've come to understand that Silicon Valley is more of a state of mind than an actual place. And I think really what the Silicon Valley companies have done is they've adopted a way of looking at things that says, we don't know everything up front, we're going to experiment very rapidly. And we're going to validate our assumptions and see what happens. And this kind of software development, contrasted to a historical way of software development, which says, we're going to assume we know what's going on and build it all, and then we'll ship it at the end. And traditionally, users have said, well, that wasn't what I thought it was, or everything's changed since we started, so the software isn't really valid anymore. It's really a scientific approach and says, let's take a hypothesis, let's do an experiment, let's validate, and see if we're right or we're wrong. And if we're wrong, we'll do another experiment. That way of building technology is extraordinarily effective. And it allows you to have a much higher success rate and avoid the long-term failures, building the wrong things. And so that's what Silicon Valley has done very well. But it turns out that the approach to doing that is no great mystery, and it's something that can be taught and can be learned, and the technologies that are used to enable that style of development are important as well. And so that's what Pivotal's about. And actually, that's what we're doing here in Australia, and we're doing it with a partner, which is Telstra, that helps us achieve a scale here more rapidly than I think we could otherwise. So I'll get back to some of that, but for a moment, I just want to give a bit of history of how this occurred. So Pivotal Labs was working in the mid-1990s with a small group of developers using a particular technology called Smalltalk, for those of you who remember that. I always see some people nodding and smiling about that one. But that was the birth of the Agile movement. It happened in the enterprise. It didn't actually happen in the startup world. But the interesting thing was the enterprise wasn't really ready to adopt these methods, to fully embrace them. It was too much of a change. And so that entire movement sort of shifted outside of large enterprises from the place that it was born into the startup, the internet companies, the early adopters, the Facebooks, the Googles, who did adopt these methods, and not easily. It was a bit of work for them, and Pivotal Labs in the early days was working with all of those companies and seeing lots of resistance, and it was difficult to adopt. You have to let go of a lot of old habits there as well. But over time, these companies really learned to wield the new weapons very, very effectively. And they were able to develop software very quickly, change quickly, and impose a lot of discipline on the process of both building and running software. And as that happened, in the early 2000s and on into 2010 to 2015, you saw these companies starting to move into other areas across industries and disrupting established industries. And they could do that because they could use the software, they could respond to changing consumer expectations much faster than established enterprises did. And so you have this phenomenon of disruption, which everyone talks about. Nowadays, you see large enterprises across the Fortune 500 in the States, the Global 2000, you see these companies responding to the software disruption by adopting these methods as well. And this is something that I really feel is unprecedented. It's happening across industries very rapidly, and it's a really, really good thing. Because what it means for all of the consumers, whether they be other companies, whether they be individuals, governments, is that if everyone is building software a lot better and using software to provide better consumer experiences, whether it's in automobiles or devices or pure software, whatever it is, everyone's going to benefit. Things are going to get more efficient. They're going to be easy. Things are going to be easier to do, and it's going to spread software technology in a much more efficient and effective way. And as software gets more and more intrinsic to everything we do, and I know all of you have seen this, it's really becoming more and more part of our lives. That's a very, very good thing. And what Pivotal is doing today, as we've evolved from working with all of these startups and doing the majority of our business there, is now we do the majority of our business with large enterprises. And we help them adopt both the methodology and the technology to allow them to innovate at startup speeds. And so coming back to Australia, I think that, and by the way, I will say just as an aside, some years ago I discovered that there was a lot of software development talent in Australia. It's also very easy for software developers to immigrate to the States, and so we actually hired a whole lot of Australians, especially into our New York office. So if you go to our New York office, you're expecting to hear one accent, and that's not the accent you hear. So it really puzzles people. And so coming to Australia, I think is quite natural for us, but we're doing something unique here, which is partnering with Telstra. And that enables us to do a couple of things. One, Telstra is obviously going on a big digital transformation of their own, which I'm sure Andy will tell you a little bit about. But they're also partnering with us to bring those lessons and to bring the style of development and the technology to their own customers. And we're doing a joint venture with Telstra to do that, and that's something that we haven't done anywhere else, with anyone else. And so, in the best spirit of experimentation, iteration, we're working on that and making a lot of progress. And I think it's really starting to take off, and I'm excited to see where it goes. We're working with some really interesting customers, and I think we're going to get to some pretty good scale pretty soon. And it's a very exciting thing for Pivotal, and I think it's exciting for, hopefully it's exciting for Australian software developers and software consumers too. So I'm going to hand it over to Andy, but thanks very much, and see you all later.